Knowing how to write effective user stories is a powerful skill to learn. They may seem really complicated at face value, but let me walk you through the exact framework I use to craft user stories for our clients. By the end of this video, I'll have you mastering the art of user story creation. Plus, as a bonus, I'll lay out the template to use to simplify crafting user stories, no matter what the project, software, or solution you are ultimately developing will be. Now, before I actually get into the user stories, I want to talk first about why this is important. In the context of software development, user stories are what we will be giving our developers to help them understand what the specific feature or piece of code we need them to write must do. Without well-crafted user stories, we leave too much to interpretation, or more commonly, misinterpretation, leading to rework and slipping timelines. User stories aren't just for the development stage. When it comes to quality control and user acceptance testing, having solid user stories will simplify the process and also make sure all stakeholders are on the same page about what the intended outcomes of each feature should be. Think of your user stories as the bridge between the non-technical users and their requirements and the technical description that developers and testers need to be able to deliver the exact code and value that we are asking them to. For today's how-to guide, I'm going to be using an example user story from a water delivery app we helped create. For some context, this app connects rural homeowners who live off tank water with water delivery drivers during times of drought, helping them quickly get quotes and availability from multiple drivers in a few clicks on their smartphone. You will see on the left-hand side of my template that we start by breaking our software into different product areas. This lets us group common features together so we know which part of the software they affect. Now, my diagram is just a simplified one. The reality is in yours, you're probably going to have many of these post-it notes as you go through and document each of the different areas and features. I also like to color code them so that in my case, because it's a two-sided platform, I've got my yellow ones for my homeowners and my blue post-its for my delivery drivers. And once again, in yours, it might be, the user and the software, but just color code it to help keep it easy to understand which piece of the software and which user specifically these post-its related to. Next, we have our main process section. Now for this step, I use a technique called key value creation. I'll cover how to create these diagrams in a separate video, but in short, it's a timeline that starts when your user first signs in and ends when the user gets what they wanted from your app. Each step on your timeline relates to a piece of value you have created for your user along this journey. Turn each one of those steps into a main process heading so you can add it to your user storyboard. The main process you can extract directly from your key value creation diagram. It's quite likely that your main process is going to be one of the steps in the key value diagram. So in my example, you can see here I've got requesting a delivery, receiving a quote request, and selecting an offer as three of the processes I have used as an example. Next is our role, so pretty self-explanatory. In mine, I only have two roles. I've got my drivers and I've got my homeowners, and these user stories need to relate to one or the other. There are occasions where it could relate to both, but in most cases I would suggest that even if it relates to both, split it out. Even if it says exactly the same thing on both rows and the only difference is the role, that's totally fine. Just better to have each one documented separately so that it doesn't get missed in the development process. Now this is where we really start getting into the fun part of building user stories. We will get to that in a moment, but if you are new here or this is your second or more video, I have something called the virtual high five, which means if you are getting value from these videos and you have watched two or more, all I ask is that you hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me out, as while I make these videos free to watch, it does take my time and energy to put them together. So if you have watched two or more videos, hit the like and subscribe button if you're finding them useful and give me that high five. Now, back to our storyboard. So think of this particular column, much like we've put in the header, user stories, I want to, I need to, and essentially think of it in that sentence. So as a homeowner, I want to select when I need water delivered by. As a driver, I want to input a price and an ETA on when I can deliver water. So essentially just start putting yourself in the shoes of each one of your users and start writing out each each of these various stories that associated back to each of the main processes. As you can see in my diagram, one main process might have several rows of user stories that we need to create, and that's totally fine. In fact, the more you break it down, the better, because it just gives you that much more control over exactly what the end result is that we generate for our customer. So I've covered the I want. Why do I want that? What is the value that is being created, or what is the function that I am trying to achieve by doing this thing? So I want to select when I need water delivered by, so that I can be confident I will have water in time. I know that I'm running out, and I want to know that the date that I've set is the very latest point, for example, when I'm going to receive my water. And what is the acceptance criteria on that? Well, I'm going to need to be able to select a date that I need the water by, and I really only want to see offers that can meet those conditions. No point in telling me a bunch of different offers that 3 months down the line when I've long gone lost all my water. I'll just run you through a few of my examples as well, just to give you a feel for how to produce your own user stories. So let's look at the driver receiving a quote request. Yes, they want to input a price and an ETA on when they believe they can deliver the water. Why do they want to do that? So that they can secure the work order. As I mentioned in the previous video, a lot of these delivery drivers rely on word of mouth and customer satisfaction. They need to be able to give information to the customer to let them know that they'll be able to deliver on time. What are my acceptance criteria? Well, I'm going to need to be able to input a price, and I'm going to need to be able to input a delivery date estimate. That may need to change, but that's fine. We'll cover that later, or we might create a whole separate user story that says, I need the ability to change the delivery date based on, workload, etc. So once again, that could be a whole different row. Looking at the next one, I only want to receive relevant requests. No point in receiving quotes for areas that I can't service. So my user story is I want to only receive relevant requests so that I can only send quotes to people that I can actually service. What is my acceptance criteria? Well, the request must fall within a designated zone. And once again, as you can see, as we're going through this process, that particular one there now tells me that I actually need a whole nother row that talks about how the truck driver sets up what their delivery zone is. Down to my last one, looking at the product area for bookings and specifically selecting an offer as the homeowner. I want to be able to receive multiple offers. And why do I want to do that? Because I need choice on price, I need choice on when the delivery is going to be, and I may need to be able to make some decisions based on that. So I might be willing to pay a premium if they can deliver sooner, or I might be able to say, well, actually I can wait a bit longer, and so I'll go for a cheaper price and wait longer. So in this particular case, I've put in the acceptance criteria that I would receive at least 2 quotes, but that would need to be unpacked further to figure out, like, how do we ensure that people always get at least 2 quotes? Is it realistic that everybody could always get 2 quotes? Sometimes there may only be one driver that services their area, so what are we going to do in that case? So once again, if we start thinking this through, we start thinking, okay, well, does that mean that we might want to give drivers the option to make multiple quotes and say, okay, well, I can deliver to you quickly at a premium, or I can deliver it to you a bit later at a lower cost. Hopefully you can see as you go through this process, it's really going to start unpacking a lot of different features and a lot of different areas that you need to expand on as you put yourself in the shoes of the users and understand more about the process that they will have to follow. As I mentioned at the start, this can all feel a bit overwhelming when you first start, so I generally suggest that you start with one user role first and work your way through their whole journey before you dive into the next. User stories are incredibly important. Building a good set of user stories is arguably one of the longest single steps in mapping out any software you plan to create. They take a lot of iteration, especially if you have multiple users or stakeholders, so don't rush them. Here's where I'd like to throw in an extra bonus for you. If you are struggling with your user stories, or even if you just want a second set of eyes to make sure you haven't missed anything, then drop a comment below. I'll connect with you and can run through your user stories with you to provide feedback and suggestions. I hope to hear from you soon. Until then, scale smarter.